Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. And before we start today's video, those who are new to the channel, let me tell you about my site startup called swiftcv.com. It's a small website where you can create professional websites out of your LinkedIn profile, or you can also start from scratch. You can add work history, social links, projects, and also portfolio. And it generates one beautiful website that you can share with recruiters and everyone. And it's just one link, so you don't have to send resume separately and portfolio separately. So we are offering a pro subscription for lifetime for $29. So for $29 you'll get a lifetime pro plan and all the future updates as well. So I'll link it below. It's called swiftcv.com, and if you want you can just check it out. And yeah, let's get started with today's video now. So guys, in today's video, we are going to build a file sharing app or a file transfer app like AirDrop. So if you have used Apple devices like iPhone, MacBook Pro, iMac, iPad, AirDrop is a feature where you can seamlessly send files to other devices which are in the proximity. So it shows you devices that are in the proximity, and you can just drag and drop and send the file to those devices, and it's really seamless and fast. So in today's video, we are going to build the same thing, but gonna modify a little bit. So I have my wireframe here, which I have drawn on paper and put it up here. So always start with a wireframe, like a pen paper wireframe. It's a good habit. So this is how my screen is gonna look like, where I'll have let's say these circles, which shows me how far the device is, and these circles shows the devices that are nearby to me. And I'll also show some files that I want to share in the bottom. And basically I can then drag and drop to any one of those devices, and the file transfer process starts, and then it gets completed. So this is what we're going to build today. Before we start building this, I would like you to remind that you should have interactive components, interactive variants enabled on your Figma app that you're running. So interactive component should be available for your app, and right now it's in beta, so you have to request for it. I've explained how to do that in my last video, the music app videos. Go and check it out. It's a form that you have to fill, and then only it can get enabled. So without that you won't be able to build this prototype. So yeah, do that if you haven't, and let's get started. So based on the wireframe that I've shown, I've created this screen. This is a quick screen that I've set it up. So it has a logo, it has a couple of photographs, so nothing much. These are just circles that I've filled with images, and the name of the device or the device name. So for example, this says Chrissy's Macs, Caleb, Zach's iPhone, Christina, right? So these are the devices that are in my proximity. Then I have created these circles, rings basically, and what I've done is I've given them 2 thickness, some red color, and I've given them a pass-through of 15%. So it's really important that you give it an opacity rather than giving it a solid light color. Just give it an opacity. I'll explain why it's needed. So multiple rings. Closer ring shows you that this device is the closest to you, this is the farthest, this is the next closest, and then these are the farthest one on the outer ring. And below, what I have shown is different files that I want to transfer, and a text that says send 3 file. These are also nothing. These are just one group which I've called as named it as drag and drop, and inside is just contain images, 3 images. And just to show that we can also send multiple format of devices, I've added a play button which shows that it's a video file. So yeah, this is how it is. You can just quickly set it up in this way. And don't worry guys, I'll also be releasing these newer files after we hit 2k subscriber mark. So after every subscriber milestone I release all the files, so I'll be doing that really soon as well. So yeah, now we have the first screen with us. Now what we want to do is we want to show a small animation behind, which is like a pulsating animation, so that it gives it more realistic feel. So to build that, what we are going to do is we are first going to measure the width of this iPhone. So it's 414. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an artboard, and I'm gonna give it a width of 414 and height of 414 as well. So now what we have to do is we have to create circles into this. So what I'll do is I'll grab my circle tool and draw a small circle. We want a really small circle, so we'll call it 20 and center align it in this frame. And I want to give it a different color, so maybe this color I'll give it, and I'll give it a opacity of something around 15% maybe. Yeah, and I'm gonna rename this entire frame as frame 1 is fine. I'm gonna rename this ellipse as pulse 1. And guys, it's really important that you rename your layers uniquely so that auto animate can work properly. So this is frame 1. Now what we want to do is we want just to duplicate this, and we want to create this circle bigger. So what will happen is this transition between this to a bigger circle. So we'll give it something around 400. Okay, so what's happening from here to here, the circle is getting bigger. And we also want to create a third frame where the circle disappears, and we'll give it a 0 opacity. Okay, so what will happen is it increases and then disappears, and then we want to loop back again from the first. Okay, so we'll see this cool ripple animation where the circle is getting bigger and changing to smaller and disappearing as well. Now what we want to do is we need to select all these 3 frames and go on the top where you can create the components. Click on this icon and create multiple components. Don't create component, otherwise it'll club all these 3 together. Create multiple components. So it'll create 3 separate components: frame 1, frame 2, frame 3. They are all 3 separate components now. Okay, now what we want is select all these 3, and in the right you will see combine them as variants. So you have to hit that, and what Figma will do is Figma will say that okay, these 3 are a part of same component, and they will create them as a variant. Now as soon as you create them as a variant, these 3, you'll get one additional feature that I was talking about, which is interactive variants that needs to be enabled on your device. So what will happen now is if I click on this first frame and I go to my prototyping tab, okay, if I drag one line from here to the second artboard, you will see this additional option called change to. So this option is only available for interactive variants if that feature is enabled on your system. Okay, so this is what you are looking for. So if you combine them as variant, you will see this additional change to option in your prototyping panel. Okay, so what we're going to do is from first artboard, this frame 1 of the component, to this frame 2. Okay, and we don't want it on click, we want the circle to grow automatically without our intervention. So instead of on click, we want to do after delay. And guys, always make sure that you select the entire artboard and not the circle inside. The reason being, after delay is only available if you link artboards, one artboard to another artboard. If you link inside shape to another shape, you'll not get the delay option. Okay, so always make sure that you combine the 2 different artboards, not the entire inside shape. Okay, so I click again here. So after delay, so we want that this increase of circle, this process starts automatically. We don't want to give this much delay. We don't want that it starts after 800 milliseconds. We want it to start immediately. So we'll give 10 milliseconds. Okay, change to the second frame. Perfect. Instead of instant, we want to give smart animate, which is also perfectly fine. So it will grow it automatically. Ease out, and we have 300 milliseconds is too high. We'll give it 100 milliseconds. Okay, so that's the first frame. So it will grow till here in 100 milliseconds. Now from second to third where it disappears, we want to again give after delay. So I'll select the entire second frame and link it to third, and instead of on click, change it to after delay. And again, we don't want 800 milliseconds, we want this to disappear gradually, but 800 milliseconds is still high, so we'll give somewhere around 100 milliseconds. Again, change from 2 to 3, smart animate, ease out, and we want to have this disappearing process slowly. So it'll give us a really nice smooth ripple effect. Okay, so we'll give 300 milliseconds, and once it disappears, we want the circle to start again so that this becomes a loop. So I'll select the third frame and again link it to the first artboard. Okay, So on click, no, not on click, we wanted to do after delay. Instead of 800 milliseconds, we now want, after disappearing, we want immediately to start back from the first stage. We'll give 10 milliseconds, which is really less. Same, okay, frame last to frame 1. Smart animate, perfect. Ease out, and instead of 300 milliseconds, we just want to give 10 because we don't want to spend time moving to the first frame. Okay, so now these three are set up, and the best part now is that these components, this is now a looping animation that is being set up. You can go to the assets panel and click on page 1 where you see this component that we have built. Component 1 is enabled. You can drag and drop in your artboard. Okay, so after dragging and dropping in your artboard, go back to your layers panel. I'll just center align it so that it matches perfectly with our concentric circles behind. I'll select this and I'll move it down behind all the layers. So command left bracket and move it all the way down. So now it's behind everything, the ripple that we have built. If you see, we have white screen. So what we can do is we can select all these three artboards that we have created as variants and remove the fill from here so that this becomes transparent. And if you see, it reflects immediately here. Okay, perfect. Now what we want to do is, let's see how the ripple effect is working. So ripple is behind the last component. This component 1 is the ripple. Now let's see how it will looking. So if you see, our ripple effect is working perfectly, but the speed is a bit too fast. So what we need to do is we need to increase the duration for some of the animation so that it becomes a little bit more smoother. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the app and I'll go to the prototyping settings, and in here if you see the first one, so 10 millisecond is fine, but this 100 millisecond time is too short. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna increase it a bit, so maybe like 1000 milliseconds, and smart animate is fine. Let's see how it looks like. So now the animation is gradual, slow, smooth, but in the end the transition is a little bit harsh because it's going to zero opacity suddenly. So to make it even more smoother, what we can also do is you can come here, the second frame, I'll select the second circle, and instead of 15 opacity I can give it something like 2. So what will happen is, it start from here with 15 opacity, it will go to 2 gradually and then 0. So there's a gradual decrease between these three stages. Let's see how it looks like now. Perfect. So if you see, it's really gradually fading in the end. And I told you about these concentric circles to have an opacity. So what is happening is, because they also have opacity and the background ripple also have an opacity, so when the ripple is combining with the concentric circle, it's illuminating that particular circle. So it's giving us this nice illumination effect throughout these concentric circles. So yeah, this is working for us. Now let's build the second stage, where when I drag these files to, let's say, Zach's iPhone, this icon should get bigger. Okay, this profile picture should get bigger and rest of them should get dimmed. So let's do that. Let's build that. So from here what I'll do is I'll just duplicate my artboard. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll select this group and I'll move it somewhere here. I'll reduce the opacity of the text to 0. So I'll do it 0. I'll move it a little bit up here, and I'll also increase the size for this circle so that it's clear that you're sending it to this device only. I'll make it to something like 72, and I'll just center align it again here. Yeah, and what I'll also do is I'll select the rest of the circles and I'll give them a less opacity, which will mean that we are sending it to this one and not to these. Okay, so I'll come here, instead of pass through this, I can give it like 30%, so it'll become really dim. One thing also is that in the second artboard we don't really need this ripple component, because ripple is needed in the phase where it's discovering devices, but it's not needed when you have chosen that device. So I'll come in the second frame and remove that background ripple animation. And I think, yeah, so what I'm now gonna do is I'm gonna link these two prototypes, these artboards. So I'll select this drag and drop group and drop it here. Instead of on tap, I'll do on drag. Smart animate ease out, but instead of 1000 milliseconds, we'll do 100 milliseconds, a bit faster. And from this artboard, okay, if I click back, instead of on tap on drag, I should come back to this screen again. So smart animate ease out 100 milliseconds. Perfect. Now what I want to do is, let's see how this looks like. So it's a simple drag animation, and let's see how it looks like. Okay, so our ripple is working perfectly. These are the files. What I'll do is I'll just see, it's working so nicely. The image is getting zoomed up and I'm able to drag. Okay, so at this stage we also don't need this, so I'll give it a 0 opacity here as well. And yeah, so our second stage is also done. Now once we are moving to this device gets bigger. Now this device, once I stop the drag, I should able to drop it here, and the file transfer should start now. So I'll do that in the third phase. So let's quickly build the third frame here. So what will happen is, in that case, this gets bigger in the center and the file transfer should start. So I'll copy the second frame and move it here. I'll move this down so that there is more space here. Okay, and what I want is, I want this to go, I want to remove all this. This should disappear. Okay, and this image should be in the center, and these files should also be here. So let me very quickly do that. So guys, this is what I've done. I've added in the center, I've added these two texts which says sending 3 files to Zach's iPhone, and I've opened up these 3 grouped or clubbed files into these individual sets, and I've given it a name. And this will be a progress bar which we are going to animate, and it has a cross in front of it. And once this transfer completes, this cross changes to a tick. So we'll create one component and use that interactive variant component with everyone. So let's build this animation, which is the progress bar, and that changes from cross to this once the transfer is complete, and we'll duplicate these for all these things. So let's quickly do that. What I'll do is I'll select this, and I'll create a component out of it. Okay, and I'll move that component out. Probably I'll move it below. Okay, just make sure that these are working. I'll just center align them. Perfect. Instead of this much, I'll give it a white stroke with some opacity. 25% opacity is fine. Cross, and what I'll do is I'll again duplicate this and call it slider BG, the below one, and top one is indicator. Okay, so renaming is really important. And let me quickly add a black color so that we know we're not doing any mistakes. Okay, so this is how it's gonna look like. Now we have indicator, which is exactly the same size as slide bar. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change its color, and we'll reduce its width. Okay, and I'll do it 2. Perfect. And I'll just take it and I'll duplicate it. I'll actually detach the component here because we want to create a fresh component, and instead of component 2, I'll just call it slider interaction 1. Okay, so this is a component, but this is not a component. I'll also call it slider interaction 2. and we'll make a component differently so that we can combine them as a variant. So now I'll select the indicator and increase the size and just fill the entire thing. Okay, so this is the 100% stage and this is the starting stage. What I also want to do is I'll just copy this checkbox that we have created and I'll add it here. So in the first component I'll add it and I'll give it a 0 opacity. So it's not visible in the first stage, and I'll do the same thing here. I'll just copy that component, call it tick, and I'll copy that component and I'll put it here. Okay, and give it a 100% opacity. And we don't want the cross, so I'll just rename it to cross. And I don't want the cross to have opacity, so I'll just make it 0 opacity. We also have to rename cross here, so just cross in the first as well. Perfect. Now slider 2 is ready. What we want to do is just create a component out of it. So now we have two components. One is the starting stage, one is the ending stage. We can select these two components together and combine them as variants as we did for the first ones. Okay, now as we combine them as a variant, we get a really nice option of prototyping between them. So just quickly click here, and instead of on tap should be after delay, and we want it to start after some time because we are also doing this drag animation, so that should also start. So we need to give some duration, so let's give it 100 milliseconds, and instead of instant we will give smart animate. Ease out, no, we don't want ease out. Okay, ease out is fine, and 100 millisecond, no, we'll give it a little bit more, 300 milliseconds. And yeah, let's see how it looks like. So what I'll do is I'll go back in my assets panel, and now I have the other component available here. I'll just drag and drop it here. Okay, and I'll make sure that it's next below this. One more thing, we also don't want the black backgrounds, that is available in both of them. So I'll just come here and remove it. Okay, now let's first check out if this is working or not. So I'll go in the prototyping tab, I'll move this plus slider to here, this play icon, so that we can just see this is working or not. Let's see. I think it happened really fast, but it's happening, so we need to slow down the time. Good part, it's working. So I'll come here, select this, and instead of 300 milliseconds we might need to give it like 1000 milliseconds. Okay, and this should start after some time, so I'll give it 500 as well. Let's quickly see how it looks like. So now what we need to do is we need to just prototype between this and this, which we have not done. So what I'll do is I'll select the entire artboard and I'll link it to the third, and instead of on tap we'll give it after delay. I'll give it like 100 millisecond duration. Smart animate, ease out is fine, and we want 300 milliseconds. Perfect. So now let's see how it looks like. In the first screen, yes, ripple is happening. If I move the screen files, so this is zooming up, yeah, perfect. And if I drop the files, perfect, so it goes up and the progress bar appears. Let's see this one more time. I come, I drop, moves up and fills out. Perfect. This looks absolutely nice, and I think we are done with this. In case you want to make it a little bit more interactive, right now we have linked this file to this drag behavior. When we drag to this particular area, it's zooming up, but you can also make sure that interaction of drag can also be available for these elements, so that becomes a little bit more realistic. But I think at this stage itself it's really nice. And guys, I think that's it for today's video. If you like the video, do share and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.